This podcast is a production of WCWP, LIU Public Radio. Check out our lineup of original programs, listen live, or support by visiting WCWP.org.
The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Welcome to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Lohse. Hello, Otto.
Morning, John.
I missed you last week, and I apologize for that, but now we're back and everything's fine. And I'm going to get right to our guest because everybody has a time schedule. And this morning, we are with our district attorney, Madeline Singas, and it's always so wonderful when Madeline comes on the show because she's a wealth of information, but also because her time is so valuable that when she gives it up for the people in the town of North Hempstead, she is really showing to us what a dedicated public servant she is because she's always there for everybody. Good morning, Madeline, and thank you so much.
Good morning, John. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
What I'd like to start with this morning, I mean, obviously everybody knows we have the pandemic. COVID has changed the world for everybody. How are you guys functioning in the district attorney's office?
Well, I have to say it's been very challenging. We went virtual in about 2.5 weeks. So we turned the whole infrastructure of the DA's office and the court system into a virtual operation in about 2 weeks. I like to say we went from the 1950s or 60s technology of Nassau County into this virtual reality where now every one of my assistant DAs has at their homes a setup that mimics their setup in the office, so they can access files. All of those, we built all of these warehouses of information that we can access safely, that have sensitive information, that are secure. We can access the court system. We can do arraignments. We can do everything we were doing in the courthouse from our homes. And each one of our ADAs is set up that way. And it was really a remarkable feat. And I'm proud to say that every single day, the ADAs are on their computers. They're logging in. Hearings are being done. Appeals are being heard. Orders of protection are being issued. Pleas are being taken, all in the same way we were doing as if we were live. So it has been an incredible operation. I never imagined that I would be in charge of something like this. But it has been, it's both inspiring and just overwhelming.
The fact that nobody has missed a beat. Otto, I see you wanted to jump in with something.
Yeah, Madeline, a lot of people, like you used the word DA's office, all right? And I really have to admit myself, until I did some homework for this segment, that I didn't realize how big that office is. There's a lot of people in that office. I went on the website and there's 231 attorneys, according to what I read. Could you maybe give us just a brief overview of the structure of this DA's office, which is a lot bigger than just a little office, like the picture that people have?
It sure is, Otto. We're the biggest law firm in Nassau County. So right now we're at about 185 attorneys, and plus probably another 190 to 200 support staffs. And including detectives as well. So we're about 400 people that we oversee the day-to-day operations and the prosecution and investigation of over 30,000 cases a year. So it is a bustling, huge operation, and we're divided in the office, along subject matter. So we have bureaus that are focused on gangs and drug operations. We have bureaus that are focused on special victim type cases, which deal with our vulnerable populations like domestic violence cases and child abuse cases and sex offense cases. We have litigation bureaus, which just handle your routine felonies and misdemeanors. So those might include larcenies, robberies, kidnappings. And then we have a whole investigative wing of our office. Those are investigative attorneys and detectives who deal with a lot of financial crimes. So a lot of our identity theft cases come there. Public corruption, people come in with their complaints and we begin our investigations into government entities. That's on the investigation side of the operation. We have a very robust appeals bureau that defends our convictions and argues in front of the appellate division. We have ADAs, assistant district attorneys, prosecutors who are assigned to our community outreach and education part of the office. So those are prosecutors who are out in the community, and you'll see them at various fairs and parades and in schools educating kids about everything from dating violence to heroin to leaving gang life. So it is a bustling operation. Computer crimes. We have subject matter experts in every area of criminal law that you can think of, housed in our office. And I have to say, we are a premier prosecutor's office in the state. The governor's people are always looking to Nassau to see what it is that we're doing, how we're innovating. I'm very proud of everyone who works in the office and how they serve our communities.
Whoa.
Go ahead, Otto, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, John, you're on.
No, I just think one of the most exciting things, and Madeline's been on the show before, is, and Kathleen Rice was before Madeline, but Madeline has taken this, she's taken ownership of the DA's office, and really, besides being a criminal office, it's an educational office, which I think is so important. It's just not a matter of arresting somebody, putting them in jail, and whatever the legalese is that goes with that. And I'm not the least bit familiar with that part of it. But, there's so many other programs that have gone on. I mean, even you just mentioned a minute ago, going into the schools. That stuff is so important today because, the youth has to be taught. They have to have a wake-up call of being careful and watching out, and seniors with scams. And we talk about scams all the time. Those are the kind of things that this office in Nassau, and the fact that the governor is reaching out to Madeline is a perfect example of the programs that she's initiating. Excuse me, it's a more important word, initiating on our behalf for the residents in Nassau County. One, Madeline, that I'd like you to go into, we have plenty of time, is Phoenix. Because last time you were on, you talked about that. I thought that was shocking. Tremendous program.
Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, basically, fundamentally at the DA's office, we believe in second chances, right? So I created this sort of an overlay over the entire office, and it's called Phoenix. And it's an office of alternative prosecution and resources. And basically, the Phoenix oversees all of our diversion programs. So sometimes when people come in with criminal cases, we look at the case and we determine that this defendant in this case is better suited to diversion, right? So they go through a program. Sometimes it involves drug treatment. We know that sometimes crime happens because people are trying to fuel a drug habit. And before, we wouldn't really drill down into why someone was committing a crime. But I feel that until we understand what's going on, we can't hope to change the course of that person's life. So if we determine that it is an addiction of some sort that is leading someone to criminality, then let's treat that addiction so that we can make sure we get this person on the right path. Because without that need to steal, to get money, to feed that addiction, they are law-abiding citizens. So we collaborate. Right now, I think we're up to about 68 agencies, and we place justice-involved individuals into programs. Some are inpatient, some are outpatient. And our goal is to help them recover and avoid future contacts with the criminal justice system. And our office's emphasis on treatment has resulted in I think, something like a 300% increase in treatment court assessments. About 20 to 25% of our pending felony caseload is in some sort of diversion court, and that also includes mental health services. We also work with, our Nassau County Veterans Service Agency to assist veterans in the criminal justice system. So these are, dedicated courts that we work with. And at the same time, our prosecutors and our staff of Phoenix is overseeing these programs to make sure that they're delivering what it is that they're saying they deliver. Are they giving us the services that we are entitled to as a county? We oversee them. There's regular checks on their, on how they're doing, on their record keeping, because we rely on those records when we make our applications to judges to either dismiss cases or reduce cases. So it is something that is a vital part of the DA's office. All the prosecutors are well informed about Phoenix, and if they see a case that they think would benefit from one of the services that we have, then we steer that case to that service. So it is, it is helpful on so many levels, and many times victims also are happy with those dispositions because they want to make sure that the people get the help that they need so they're not committing more crimes in the future. And of course, not every crime is suitable for that, but that's why we have experienced prosecutors to look at the cases, look at the defendants, confer with judges, confer with the defense bar, and make the appropriate assessments of these cases.
You just said something which I didn't understand. I just want to make sure. So the prosecutors, people from your office would actually go to the courts and on behalf of somebody who may have got caught a second time, but is basically a good person, and come up with a case why there should be some leniency for a particular reason.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay.
The prosecutors are looking out for the defendants who would benefit from some kind of services and treatment. And we work with defense attorneys to make sure that that person gets those services, ultimately to prevent future crimes, right? Because if we don't deal with the underlying addictions, the underlying mental health illnesses that's causing people to enter the criminal justice system, then it's just a revolving door. So in order to stop that revolving door, we're saying, what's the root of criminality here? And can we do something as an organization to stop that and assist this person and get them back to a law-abiding life? And that's the genesis of Phoenix.
That's perfect. Now, we're in the courts, so let's stay in the courts. And we can start this before our next break in reference to, I know you're trying to get increase in juror pay, which I think is so important to increase diversity in the jury selection process.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the recommendations that I made. Let's make sure that, that people can actually afford to come in and be a juror. Let's make sure that, I don't think the juror rate has been increased. I can't even remember the last time, and I've been in the system for 30 years. It's $40 a day. Well, that's insufficient, and so many people say, I can't afford to do that, not go to work and come there to get paid $40 a day. Some jobs aren't paying those salaries for people who are out on jury duty. So for those who are self-employed, or maybe they rely on tips, they might hold multiple jobs. The cost is, for them to serve is too high. So let's increase that jury pay and increase the diversity of our jury pools.
I agree with you there 100%. Actually, we have to take our first break. We're listening to the Nassau County District Attorney, Madeline Singas. You're listening also on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. Some of the many services we offer include nursing and social work services. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence in You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Lohse, and he's still here. And we're having the good fortune to have with us our Nassau County District Attorney, Madeline Singas, who's bringing us up to date on how the office is not performing, but excelling during this difficult time of pandemic. But at the break, we just talked briefly, and we're going to talk about some scams that are going on. But more importantly, people have been locked in their house for 3 months now. I don't know the exact number. And we want to talk about domestic violence, because I did read something recently from the Safe Center where I think the number was up 30%, whether it's true or not. You know, sometimes the numbers can be a little vague in the beginning. Madeline, what are your feelings there? What's going on with domestic violence? Is it something we can talk about? And
it's something we should
do?
absolutely, something we should absolutely talk about. And we're concerned in law enforcement. That's the fundamental truth. We're nervous because we know that people who are in abusive relationships or were in them are now in these abusive relationships, and they are essentially locked in with their abuser, right? They're sheltering in place with the person who is causing them the most pain and violence. And that has us really nervous because we know, from all the women that we've interviewed, and I've been doing this again a long time. And as you know, John, I was a special victims prosecutor, so these cases are near and dear to my heart. I've spent many hours talking to women and young children, and often when the time that they're able to report crimes, the time that they're able to make a break from their abuser is when they're out of the house, when they're at work and they confide in a coworker, when they have the time away from an abuser to go to somewhere like the Safe Center, to meet with an advocate, to sit down and come up with a safety plan and an exit strategy. All of those avenues are now unavailable to a woman, and I'll say woman because most of our victims in DV cases are women, but obviously there are some men as well. But most of those avenues are now shut for a woman. And if she is trapped in with her abuser, and the levels of control are really extensive, she might not even be able to place a phone call because he's looking at her phone and looking at her text messages. And she is essentially trapped in, a house of horrors. And we're concerned about that. There are some reports that calls to the hotline are up. Cases, actual arrests in our office were down over the last few months. And again, that makes me nervous. That's not because it's not happening. We know it's happening, but women aren't able to report and aren't able to come into court and get the assistance that they need. So we're preparing our Special Victims Bureau and our advocates for what I think will be an onslaught of cases once everything is lifted and people are able to again engage in behaviors that will allow them to come forward and talk about what's been happening. So I tell people, neighbors, friends, if you can, go by and stand at the doorway of someone that you think might be in trouble and just eyeball them, right? Because on the phone it's hard. On a text message, if you say how are you and they write back fine, well, you can't really tell from their voice, obviously, in a text message what's going on there. So if you can, check in on your neighbors, check in on your relatives, take a look at them. The same thing goes for kids, right? Because if you think about this, a lot of our reports of child abuse and child sexual abuse would come from the schools. Teachers have eyes on these kids. Teachers know these kids' behaviors, and they know when something is wrong. They might see bruises. Kids might open up to a teacher or someone in the school system, and then they're mandated to report to a state agency. Well, now that's not happening, and no one has eyes on these kids because they're inside, in their houses. And unfortunately, sometimes these homes, which should be the place where kids and women feel the most protected, are actually places that are, just full of violence and pain and shame. And that's what we're worried about. So I just want to make sure that people understand that there is help there, that you can call 911. There is emergency housing for women if if it's needed. Orders of protection are still being issued in courts. I want to put the number out if I can, John, of the Safe Center.
Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline, 516-542-0404. That's the Safe Center here in Nassau County. And the state child abuse hotline is 1-800-342-3720. So, again, those are the cases that we feel.
Madeline, do me a favor, just give both those numbers again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. The state child abuse hotline is 1-800-342-3720. And the Safe Center for women who want to report abuse, for victims of abuse, is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline, and that's 516-542-0404. So again, we're able to help people, and I want them to use those numbers. And I also tell women to take pictures of whatever injuries, because if we contemplate a case in the future, we'd like to have that evidence. And if you think someone is holding onto your phone or looking at your phone, then text those pictures out and then delete them off your phone to a friend or someone that you trust, and keep sort of a timeline and a diary so that we know what happened and when. If we ever need to make a criminal case, that would help.
Otto, go ahead, Otto.
Just another thought, Madeline.
Yeah.
I just read not long ago that in situations like that, chatting and text messages might be not a bad way to fly either, because as you pointed out, with photos, you can delete them
Right.
if somebody catches them. So what's your thought there?
Yeah, again, messages are tough because you can look at messages again. You have to send a message and delete it, right? So if that's what you're concerned about, some people take their victims' phones and scroll through it and see who they're talking to, what kind of phone calls they've made, who they're sending messages to. So that's what we don't want to put people in more danger. So I say, like, text and then delete, so that it's not on your phone any longer, but it's on the phone of someone that you trust that could then come into the hands of law enforcement.
The terrible thing about what Madeline is talking about is that poor woman or child that realizes what's going on to them, but in this pandemic realizes they can't get out of the house. And this could be already 3 months in the making, that if it is a neighbor who questions something, and now is the time when you have to be a little bit more conscious. And even if you go over a couple of times a week just to say hello and bring coffee cake or something as a reason to knock on a door, that the husband might say, I never know when that pain in the backside is going to be coming over with a pound cake, so I better be good, versus having her open the door and you see a black eye on the woman. It's like, what happened, sweetie? And that's the importance of a neighbor. Who cares? And then after this is up, hopefully they'll get the proper treatment.
The other thing is, when you think about the stress, right, that this has caused, this pandemic, so many people, and if an abuser is out of work and there's a financial strain and he's drinking, now he's drinking even more. He's under the stress of not having a job. She can't get out of the house. Everything is exacerbated in a pandemic like this. So if you have a substance abuse problem, well, now you're self-medicating even more because of the strains that have been caused. So yeah, when we say we're all in this together, we are all in this together. So be a good neighbor, be a good friend, look into the people, look on, your neighbors, your relatives. When someone's in trouble, reach out to law enforcement. And let's look out for each other.
Yeah, just a thought that I'm admitting I don't know enough about it, but the flip side of that is the person who is the abuser. Are there programs out there that help people who do that not do it?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are what we call batterers intervention programs, which sort of ask abusers to figure out their patterns and how to break those cycles. They may have been abused as children themselves, and once they recognize that, they can sort of stop that spiraling and stop that cycle. A lot of it, again, is substance abuse induced. We hear a lot of women say, he's only this way when he's drunk. When he's not drunk, he's fine. So that's when something like Phoenix comes in. Let's make sure that we get him the help that he needs so that he can control his drinking and get sober, and that family can live harmoniously. But of course, some of the domestic violence that we see is so violent and the injuries are so bad that, those are full-blown criminal prosecutions where only going to jail will prevent this from happening again, and will give women enough time to get out, to safety plan, to start their lives over again. These are desperate situations. And again, that's the stuff that keeps me up at night, like thinking about these vulnerable people in homes where the violence is just escalating and they have nowhere to go, no one to turn to because they've been stuck in their houses. The same goes for our elders. If you're in a home with an abusive child or an abusive grandchild, like, you no longer have the ability to go out to the local Y or to a senior center so where people can see you and you can interact. Now, again, you're not even going to the doctor. I mean, think about our seniors. Lots of times they're visiting their doctors several times a month. And the doctor, nurses, the receptionist has, again, eyes on this person and says, how are you feeling today? What's happening? Now imagine for months that hasn't been happening. And if they're in a home where someone is abusing them, we're not going to know about it. So again, those are the things that concern me. For many of us, it's been, like I've had my kids home, they're about to go off to college. It's been great to spend some real quality time with them before they're off to college. But for so many people, it's not a safe place to be sheltered with in your home. And that's what we're concerned about.
And, the shame of it is, it's a small segment of the population. So people listening to this program, it's a wake-up call that you have to appreciate the love, like you're saying, with your kids. It's a wonderful thing to be with your kids. An opportunity you wouldn't have had if you were working 9 to 5 plus in your DA office every day.
9 to 5, John. What do you think I'm working?
I said 9 to 5 plus, Madeline. 9 to 5 plus.
That's a half day for me.
But it's the truth. Now you have some quality time with the kids. It'll never happen again, hopefully, in our lifetime that it's been like this. It's just absolutely great. I say it to my wife. We're hanging out all the time. I told my mother-in-law, I said, your daughter's actually nice. We're enjoying it. But honestly, you're running around all the time. You don't spend that much time together.
Right.
This really, but the other side of it is the negative. When the poor woman is petrified because she knows he's drinking, and there's nobody around but her, that God forbid. But it was an important segment, Madeline. Thank you very much. And actually, we're out of time. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. You shed a light on a very important issue for our listeners. I want you to be safe. We're not going to have you on before the kids go to college, so good luck to them.
Thank you.
We'll be talking soon. You're listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
Project Independence is the aging in place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. Some of the many services we offer include fitness classes, community education, information, and referral. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence in You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host is Otto Lohse.
We learned a lot in the first segment. I'm sure with Peter coming up, it'll be even more.
She's wonderful. I love Madeline. She does such a wonderful job, and she is the district attorney for the people. She struggles, she fights, and she has everybody's best interest in Nassau County at heart. Right now we have Peter Janowsky coming on, and Peter is my partner, and I want to go through 3 different things, and Peter will cover most of them. About 2 weeks ago, we had somebody from Tom DiNapoli's office on, Joe Galante, talking about beneficiaries. I want to go over that again, which is so important. As of yesterday, we have 120,000 people who have died from the coronavirus. That's probably 100,000 beneficiaries that have been taken off accounts because a lot of them are seniors and stuff has to be replaced. I also want to talk about fiduciary versus best interest standards on how an account is supposed to be handled by a financial advisor. And last, something that the Trump administration just put through in reference to 401k plans, and that is now an individual, a company, as opposed to just putting in mutual funds, can put in private placements, which is a very sophisticated and risky investment tool that requires a degree of knowledge that I personally think maybe 10% of the investing population know about. So it's my pleasure to introduce my partner, my best friend, Peter. He's taking it over.
Oh, thanks.
That was nice.
Yeah, no,
I did good.
You did wonderful. You could hear me okay, right? If I lean in like this?
Talking to the
Okay.
vase.
I'm talking into the vase. So John just mentioned a long list of things that we'd like to go over in this, I guess, in this half hour. And he mentioned, I know we're going to talk about beneficiaries first, but he mentioned something called best interest rule versus fiduciary standards. A lot of people aren't even aware of what's going on in our industry. In the last couple of years, it's been set up so that the consumer, the investor, is much, much better protected from misdoings in our industry, fraudulent things, abuse, especially in the area of paying too much for something, high commissions, and so this is all designed to increase transparency and increase disclosures of what the financial professional will be doing with a client. And our industry, it's debatable if it's right or not, is highly scrutinized, not just when it comes to investments, but also on the insurance side of things. So it could be annuities, it could be life insurance, it could be health, disability, it could be investment, it could be on the 401k arena, it could be just about anything. This new rule that's put in place is called best interest, and there are best interest contracts. So firms such as ours and other and then in the industry like Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, any financial professional firms have scurried in the last year or so to get all the paperwork in place, and they have defined their own standards to make sure they are covered in this new rule. So if you happen to be opening up a new account, or you're seeing changes with existing relationships, or an advisor coming to you and saying, hey, listen, we're changing a few things, you have to sign these papers. It's real. At the end of the day, it's really in your best interest. It's to protect you as an investor, because once again, there's going to be more disclosure and more transparency. There are products that do have commissions, and I mean, nothing's for free. So I think that the main point of a lot of these changes is so that the transparency on the commissions and what people are paying for these products, whether it's life insurance, annuities, it could even be an investment account, what they're paying per transaction, is again so that it's putting the investor first. It's putting the consumer first before anything, and everything is have to be disclosed. So when John was saying, the differences between this new best interest rule and fiduciary responsibility, it gets a little gray, but it's clear that the best interest rule doesn't always necessarily have to put the cheapest product first. It says that it has to, in many ways it says that commissions shouldn't be considered, but when it comes to a fiduciary responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility is much clearer in saying that fees are a bigger consideration and they have to be disclosed. One of the ways in our industry, which John and I do a lot of work with to relieve ourselves from worrying about fees and costs, is that we don't charge per transaction. We charge annual fees. So it really doesn't make a difference what mutual fund we're using, or exchange traded fund, or what stock we're picking, or whatever it could be, a CD, a bond. It doesn't make a difference because it's not going to change our rate of pay.
Actually, I'm going to jump in with one thing also, which is very important, and people should ask their advisor. Peter is an accredited fiduciary, which means he legally cannot sell you something which would be the more expensive item. I am not a fiduciary, but since we work together, I have to go along with the fiduciary rules. But if something is suitable, and just say the commission is $100, and it makes sense for you to buy it, but there's another one just as good, and that commission is $25. From a fiduciary perspective, you have to sell the client the one that's $25. It's the law. I don't have to do it if I wasn't Peter's partner. I could sell you the one for $100 because that's still suitable. However, being involved with Peter and doing everything 50-50, him being a fiduciary, having taken the courses and getting licensed and renewing his license every year, it would be illegal for him to do that. He has to find what is suitable, but he has to find you also the best buy, which is a very interesting thing. Go ahead, Otto.
Yeah, doing my homework naturally for this, and dealing with two guys who are pros at what you do. I read and I look and I'm saying to myself, the more I read, the more confusing it gets as far as the financial thing goes. All right. I just jotted some stuff down. 401k, 403b, 457, traditional item, IRA, simple retirement accounts, Roth IRA. And I look at all these things and I'm saying to myself, what does that all mean? And I'm not looking for you to give an explanation, but
Peter can.
yeah, but I mean, like a person, I consider myself semi-literate as far as some of this stuff goes, all right? But I believe there's a lot of people who probably know a lot less than me, and then there's a lot of people who know a lot more than me. But when I read that, I'm saying, that's really confusing, and I believe the need to have somebody who you can trust and count on when it comes to these kinds of things is very important. And, to me, trust is a big thing in everything.
Oh, it's all about trust and relationships. The list that you put together is really employer-sponsored plans. Except for an individual IRA, whether it's traditional or Roth, everything else you mentioned, a 457, which is usually a government plan, a 403b, which was it started maybe 40, 50 years ago, was designed for nonprofits like hospitals and schools. And obviously 401k is for profit plans, but those are all even a simple IRA. Those are all form of employer-sponsored salary reduction plans. So you really have to be employed with a company that's offering a plan like that to participate in it.
Does the K mean anything? 401k? Like
yeah,
other 401s?
It's a section of the code. There, believe it or not, there are other 401 plans. There's other letters that have designations, but they're rare. It's if you want to torture yourself and you're into pain, you can actually look it up and read the codes from, I think it's probably on irs.gov. And, it'll be like paragraph K is why that plan is designed like that. And that's why it was called a 401k.
Yeah, no, I'm more into, I need to know the kindergarten level and then we work with somebody who knows more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. You'd be surprised, just on a side note, John and I do handle a lot of 401ks and 403bs. And if you add up all the participants, we're dealing with several hundred people and we run the gamut. We run, there are some people that are participants who rely on us and actually end up forming relationships and they move all their assets to us or something. They want us to handle everything, be as like a so-called quarterback. And there are other participants that are wonderful on their own. They don't want to work with an advisor. They do their own research and they think they could handle it, which is wonderful. Some people do it, some people don't. Some people want to paint the house themselves. Other people want to get a professional and make sure it's done right. It's typical, but we see it all. We see some people, and you know what? It doesn't mean you're not knowledgeable or you're not smart. I mean, you in a third person. I know plenty of smart people that can't find a handle on a hammer. It doesn't mean they're what? I'm serious.
You mean you saw John using the hammer from the other end?
He saw me. No.
Sometimes I give him a hand doing work in his kids' houses, and how long do you think it will take? I say, I don't know, it might be 3 or 4 hours, but if he helps, it could take 3 or 4 days. But we're digressing.
Otto, just that metal thing. This is a diversion completely. A snake that you put into the wall and it pulls the wire after it.
Yeah.
Okay. I was with him once at my daughter's house, and maybe it's a 20, 30-foot snake. And of course, he has one piece of tape on each end. I rolled it up and I taped the entire thing. I just went around and around. So the next time he pulled it out, of course, he wanted to kill me.
We were at his daughter's house, and we were putting in a television, and we're hanging it up on the wall. And then we ran electric down the wall, and we ran the cable for the cable TV, and we plug it in, turn it on, it runs for 3 seconds, turns off. No, turn it on again, runs for 3 seconds and turns off. And we're looking at each other. I'm like,
He's looking at my son-in-law.
And I'm like, we did everything right because, you know, if the electric was bad, it wouldn't go on. And, you know, we had a picture, so the cable was working. He's sitting on the bed with a remote control. Every time we turned it off, he kept turning it off.
You have to have fun, Otto. You know that.
So, you know,
That's a good
2 hours
one, though.
becomes 6 hours.
But we digress. We're going to run into time lapse here. I know we're going to go into a commercial break, but when we come back, what we're going to do, we're going to be talking about private placements being able to go into 401ks. And a 401k, as Peter just said, is the employee-sponsored plan. And usually they're mutual funds, which is pretty vanilla for everybody. Here, the option's going to exist for people to put into those accounts private placements, which Peter will talk about a little bit more detail when we come back. But right now, you're listening. We're going to take a break. You're listening to Senior Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. One of the many services we offer is transportation for food, shopping, and medical visits. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto Lohse.
Going.
And this segment and the one before, I am with my business partner, Peter Janowsky, and we're going over a few different things. We just finished some explanations in reference to 401ks and fiduciary rules, which are very, very important. Look it up, but it's, you know, when you're dealing with anybody, and Otto, you even said it, there has to be the degree of trust. You know, if you don't trust the person, if you're walking away from anybody, and I don't care what they're doing for you, buying a car, you're selling your car, you're putting pavers in the backyard, you're doing a roof. If you don't have a good feeling for that person, get another one. Ask for a referral also. Okay, don't take somebody out of the phone book. I don't care what the job is. Get somebody. I mean, we had Madeline Singas on this morning, and we weren't talking about that, but you know, one of the biggest complaints that wind up in the DA's office is consumer fraud, where they didn't finish the job and they walked away. And you could beg the guy to come back, but he's got your money and they're not coming back. And so, you know, a little digression again, but the bottom line, the same has to happen with your finances. Go ahead, Otto.
Well, as a non-finance person, I think the other part of it that probably people have to understand is no matter how you do this with the most trusted person on the planet, that finance is not totally predictable. You know, things can happen. Stuff goes wrong. COVID-19 comes along. You know, even I think, I mean, you can try to prevent, I guess, on your end, catastrophes, if you will. But I know people who've been in IRAs and they had money in there, and it was 2008, a cousin of mine, her and her husband panicked. They took the money out, they lost a fortune, and they could never recover it because it's gone. So they need somebody to say, look, don't do that.
Well, that's you know something. What a lot of times what moves the market or for an individual investor is basically greed and fear, right? I mean, you want to make money and you run away when it's fear. There's another component when something like this happens, when somebody sells out at the wrong time and they panic and make the wrong move based on emotion. There's a sense of grief as well because there's a sense of loss. I don't know if we're allowed to plug this, and I'm not going to give out our website, but we change our website once a month.
Why don't you say it and then we'll figure it out?
Well, it's our website. You go to www.rjfsg.com. That's our group, Ryan and Janowsky Financial Services, Financial Strategies Group, RJFSG. And we wrote a piece on our website this month that deals exactly with that, the emotional part of investing. And you know, it is very difficult because if you've never gone through a volatile time before, you think you're understanding your own risk tolerance. But until it's actually happens, most people don't realize that the overwhelming effect it could have on someone's emotions and sense of panic. I mean, and I'm not saying this to be condescending, but that's what most people really move on: greed and fear. It's your fear that you fear that you're going to lose your money, and the greedy part is, well, yeah, I don't want to lose any money, but make me some money if you can. It's not that easy when the market's dropping 20-30% in 3 weeks and then bouncing back like this. Like you said, you never know what's going to happen. No one could predict the future. There are ways of mitigating risk. Everybody's different. What's good for one person is not going to be good for the next. And I really think that this was a bit of a wake-up call for everybody to look inside themselves to really understand how much risk are they willing to take and be able to sleep at night.
Yeah. What about like right now? The thing is, people are, if they want, they can take up to $100,000 out of their IRA, or you can cut out your minimum distribution for this year. What's your feelings about that?
Oh, cutting it. Well, the RMD, which is the required minimum distribution, which is being suspended this year, is fantastic. It's great for people. They don't have to pay taxes on it. If it's coming from a traditional sense. I mean, in a way, it's long.
And you don't need the money,
right? If you don't need the money, long term, there's another side to this too, because this is all part of the stimulus package. We're going to have to pay for this stimulus package. I don't see too many people talking about it in the news. The markets, the NASDAQ just made a new high, and it seems to be disregarding the fact that we're going to have probably 10% unemployment at the end of the year, an election year, and at some point taxes have to go up. The government's going to have to pay for this stimulus package. So not only taxes have to go up, but we're losing tax revenue from suspending the RMD. We're losing we might be losing tax revenue where people would normally take money from 401ks and IRAs where they'd have to pay a penalty in taxes. Now they don't, because they could pay it back over a few years. So yeah, it's great. It's great for the person. It's great for the consumer, but it's going to add to, as a country, it's going to add to our tax bill.
The one negative, Otto, with the $100,000 one, in my mind, and my understanding of the $100,000 one, is you could take that money and you have to pay it in 5 years. You have to pay the taxes on it.
Oh, you have to pay it back.
Yeah, and then how many people say, "Don't worry, I'll pay it back," and now you don't have it to pay back? So that's $100,000 on your taxes in 5 years.
Yeah.
As opposed to taking it, so which sounds wonderful, because we have clients that turn around and say, "I just need 5,000 or 10. I'm going to send it back to you." Rarely does anybody send it back, which is fine. That means they needed the money. So if you're taking out $100,000, maybe to give to your kid, maybe to do something, put an extension on the house, whatever it is you need, you're taking it. But the government wants their taxes eventually. But now it's a lump sum. It's just like the mortgage company's giving you a break, that you don't have to pay the mortgage. You got to pay it eventually. So in 3 months or 4 months, instead of paying $3,000 a month, you're going to have to pay them $12,000. Well, if you don't have the $3,000 a month for the next 3 or 4 months, where you're coming up with $12,000 at the end of 4 months, and now you have a problem, because that happened in 2008. Now they're going to come after you. Now there's going to be penalties on it. There won't be penalties prior to it, but now you're in arrears for $12,000 because now the special grace period is up. So any of those things, I have, the fine line, or the fine print rather, is so deep that I just avoid it. Keep it simple, keep it vanilla. The RMD one is nice and clean. Don't take it. You don't have to pay your taxes. Let it go till next year if you don't need it. So you have another year for the money to grow, tax deferred, and you have a little less you're paying to the government this year. That's a different story. The $100,000 one, I don't go along with that. And deferring mortgages and everything else, I don't go along. That's just my philosophy, because people will get burnt. And then there's nobody in your corner saying, "Oh, don't worry about it for another," even these people with not paying their rent, they're going to have to pay it. So what's going to happen is, and I think it's in New York City, they have a six-month grace period. Well, if you can't pay your rent for 6 months, believe you me, that landlord at the end of 6 months is going to put you out. And they're going to have 6 months to do it. So you may wind up living for 1 year in Manhattan rent-free. But once that is up, well, you're going to be in the street. Do your best. Make a deal with the landlord now and say, I can't give you $2,000, but I can give you $1,500. He would be very appreciative because you're helping him out. That's, again, this is...
Well, what Peter's, with the stimulus package, to me at least, I visualized the printing presses working overtime in order to get this money into the system. And then the other one I just ran into was my own dentist. I had quite a chat with, and he's having a hard time getting some of his people back because they're getting $600 unemployment. I don't know how long that's going to last, but in some cases, these are people who were just about making that in the first place. So now they can get that without working. And I don't know how long that's supposed to last. I don't know what the date is on that, but there's a lot of things that are going to have long-term effects, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That we don't really have to live with yet.
That's one of those fights going on right now with canceling that 600 or keeping it going. And at this point, I don't think there's enough votes to cancel it. But why would you go back to work and lose $600 when you're staying home? And with the unemployment and the $600, you're actually making more.
Well, at some point, if they actually wanted to put time and energy into the system, they could modify it to put some kind of scaling in place. You would think, but then it would probably require all new systems and everything, and
right,
just to scale it. But it's going to have to change at some point. We can't pay for this forever.
Yeah, no, and the amount of money that they're throwing into the system, it's spooky. And you still have 40 million people unemployed. No matter what the game of coming up and coming down, the percentage of unemployed, the percentage of businesses that are not going to reopen, it's staggering. And then when they do reopen, they're going to be opening at like these restaurants that are reopening now, but they're opening like 25, 30% of capacity. So if you're paying your rent, I don't think the landlord's giving you a 60% reduction in rent. So we're in, I don't know. It's such a bizarre, we've never been here before. What it does prove is you always have to have money for the rainy day. So if we're going to go to finances on this, when Joe Galante was on from the controller's office a couple of weeks ago and he referenced that piggy bank, savings, what was it? Savings.
Yeah, three things. At least I know there were three things, but what were they?
One was donations, one was savings.
This is senior talk radio. You're allowed to forget.
Yeah, one might have been like fun, vacation. Yeah, make savings, vacation, and donations. But savings had to be the biggest, which is the truth. And this is a country that really goes paycheck to paycheck. And those people have had a rude awakening. And that's why the comeback is going to be that much more difficult. There's not a lot of people. And then unfortunately, which always does happen, and I'm not the person to read the fine print, but even that $500 billion that was given out, nobody knows where it went. And they're not telling.
There's no oversight. They fired the oversight. I don't want to get too political on the show, but there's very little oversight to where all the funds went. There's none. There's basically no oversight on the federal level.
Right, and which is a disgrace, because it's needed for the smaller guy. The bigger guy doesn't have to go from 25 million to 30, in my mind. But the poor person out here with two children and just getting by with formula or whatever they're doing needs the extra 500. It means something to them. And that's an important consideration. But actually, we're out of time already. This is amazing. I want to take a moment to thank Peter to give up his time to help go through some of these things with us this morning. And then, of course, for Otto for giving him a good grilling. I appreciate that, Otto. You're listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
Like what you hear? Here's how you can let us know. Give us a call at 516-299-2626 or email us at info@wcwp.org. Like us at facebook.com/mywcwp and leave a comment or tweet us at mywcwp. We welcome all kinds of feedback. To directly support the podcast you just enjoyed, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to give back, visit wcwp.org and click the support tab. Thanks for listening from your friends at WCWP.